rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm laughing. It's Monday. Anna's been imbibing. That ought to make her unofficial producer duties kind of interesting for tonight. Anyway, we're not laughing at you, we're laughing with you. Anyway, so it's Monday. It's the start of another week, and we'll see what we have in store for tonight. It looks like there's some truth bombs on the way for some of you liberal leftist lunatics out there. But first up, we have none other than one of the Whiskey Warrior P1s. May he rest in peace, up for tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hat, if you're wearing one, like me. And place your hand over your heart and follow along with the memorial, or always memorable, there we go, Buddy Weiser, as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I hereby pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which she stands, one nation under one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all her citizens. So help me God.
And, of course, I thank you, my friend, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge, not to mention the fact of the idea of doing the pledge every single show. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and either send it to me via an email. You can send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. Or if you're using your phone, you can apparently hit the share button and share it to fans at americanperspective.online. You know, I actually went and looked up his obituary, and it turns out that he... Buddy is apparently was never married. He did not have any children, but he is survived by a single brother and a single sister, several nieces and nephews, and some grandnephews. He also apparently was a trumpet player and loved music and, of course, the Carolina Tar Heels. So, there you go, a little bit about Mr. Buddy Weiser that you may not have known about. But anyway, he also, according to the obituary, was not afraid to state his opinions. So, yeah, we experience that here on the show more often than not. There's nothing wrong with that. Trust me, there's nothing wrong with that at all. All right, let's get to tonight's headline sponsor. Tonight's headline sponsor is theflagshirt.com. I am wearing one of their fantastic cotton polos right here. This is an American-themed style cotton polo, men's cotton polo that is, graces the show very often during this time of year. And if you want to check out all of their styles, men's, women's, kids, made in the USA, Independence Day outlets, all of the wonderful things, especially some accessories in red, white, and blue, go ahead and head on over to theflagshirt.com and take a look at all of their offerings. They have some patriotic styles for fall up there. You can see on the screen, they've got looks like a men's half zip or 3/4 zip pullover in the fantastic stars and bars coloring. And for the ladies, the wonderful lady model here is wearing a red USA hoodie, pullover hoodie. You can go and check all of that out at theflagshirt.com. And right now, they have their patriotic styles for fall, so it's all fall stuff that they're highlighting. And also, don't forget, if you order $75 or more of their gear, you will receive free shipping. That always happens. But I know not everybody can do $75. Maybe it's just one item that you're looking for, something along those lines, a singular item. Well, I'm going to help you out. If you go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, you will be presented with a coupon code. Take and copy and paste, copy pasta, that coupon code into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com, and you will receive $5 off your order when you use that promo code. So go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and grab that coupon code there, copy and paste it into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get $5 off your order on American Perspective. Head on over to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. Well, folks, do you remember this? Here, I played it for you on Saturday. You remember this this little thing here?
What do we want?
We don't know.
When do we want it?
Also unclear.
Why do we want it?
Because it was forwarded to us in an email, so it must be true. Yeah!
What do we want?
We don't know.
When do we want it?
Also unclear.
Why do we want it?
Because it was forwarded to us in an email, so it must be true. Yeah!
What do we want?
We don't know.
When do we want it?
Okay, so yeah, obviously that was a Family Guy mockery of the No Kings event, and I played that for you on Saturday. It was mocking, yeah, the whole No Kings event. But what's really funny is that this is actually also real life. Because apparently, the Daily Wire went out and they asked a bunch of No Kings protesters what made Trump a king, and they couldn't find anybody to do it. So the Daily Wire team, this is in the Daily Wire, the Daily Wire team joined throngs of marchers who took to the streets on the nation's capital Saturday for the 2025, October 2025 No Kings protest. The Washington, D.C. rally was the focal point of similar events nationwide, meant to counter the quote-unquote authoritarian threats posed by President Donald Trump and his administration. I already told you some people tried to tell me that this was like sort of a softening of the Independence Day holiday, July 4th. Total crap. All it is just against Donald Trump, because I guarantee you, if No Kings was going to be a continual thing, no matter what president was in office, which, by the way, there's only been 2 No Kings, okay? There's only 2 No Kings rallies so far, both of them, one in June on the Army birthday, and the other one was just happened. And so you sit there and, any of you liberal lunatic leftists who sit there and say, oh, no Kings is beyond that. By the way, No Kings, there was also people at the No Kings rally this past weekend that were trying to advocate for no school choice and to close down private schools. What the hell does that have to do with having a king in office or having a king for a monarch or, in terms of a government. But anyway, so protesters came prepared with posters and costumes. No, actually, they didn't. There's reports out there now that many of the posters that were being handed out, many of the signs were actually being handed out by, organizers and some of the supporters, which the supporters of the and the donations, the donors of the No Kings protest included, as I said on Saturday, the Communist Party, Democrat Socialists of America, so on and so forth, a whole bunch of anti-American. So, when Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, was saying this is the anti-American protest, that's a lot more accurate than No Kings protest. This is literally a anti-American protest. That's what it is. But anyway, they had many of them, according back to the Daily Wire piece here, many of them had gone through media training, learned chants, songs, dances to perform. But after all of that, many of the protesters the Daily Wire encountered couldn't answer what we thought was a simple question. If Trump was elected, how is he a king? And, the responses that they got were, let's say, a little interesting. So here, I don't think this is a, oh yeah, it is. All right. Here's a video. From, we'll see. Anyway.
We're out here at the No Kings protest and we're asking all the important questions.
Such as, if Trump was elected, how exactly is he a king?
Because he is trying to take control of everything, like his checks and balances are not working, so he is just trying to completely disregard the Constitution.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of amendments have been kind of overcome, like in a way that they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, which amendment specifically?
The whole
first one?
the first one.
Trying to take away our
freedom of protesting.
I would say that it's because even though he was elected, I agree, due process, he got what he got elected fairly, sure, but he's doing things that make him a king, like he's taking away, civil rights.
That's a great question. I don't particularly think he's a king, it's how people are viewing him as.
Actively switching the levers of power in order to subvert elections.
And what does that mean?
Things such as, trouble coming up with words.
Oh my gosh. Those people, I got to tell you, their intelligence level, which many of them I'm sure would claim, oh yeah, I went to I went to college. I got me an education. Anyway, these people. I'm just saying that Well, some of the protests had some very interesting things come about. And now, granted, I haven't heard of anything like any violence that occurred. However, there were some people that did get arrested, but nothing really major in terms of the like a violence or burning anything down or any of that kind of thing. But some of the protests did have some interesting, to say the least. A disturbing video from Chicago shows a middle-aged woman making a gun gesture with her hand and pointing to her neck. Yeah, that was in reference, of course, to the death of Charlie Kirk. Towards the end of the D.C. protest, there was a chant that broke out saying, "Turning Point has got to go." Yeah. Many of the signs featured rhetoric claiming that Trump was a Nazi and that ICE equals the Gestapo. yeah, none of that's happening. And then, of course, a small fragment of the protest made the event a family affair with children holding signs such as "Stop kidnapping people." Yeah, like that's happening. Folks, I'm sorry, but these people, you cannot be serious and have a serious conversation with people like this because, really? You don't even have any idea as to why you're protesting. You have no clue as to why you're protesting. You're just swallowing, essentially, the talking points that the left is giving you. Oh, Trump is, he's an authoritarian. Really? He hasn't really done anything authoritarian yet at all. You're just the plain and simple fact that the government is shut down because the leftist lunatics in the Senate of the Democrats have it shut down to hold it hostage to prevent people from getting paid because they want to extend these health subsidies that were created under COVID. I mean, that's literally what they're doing. It's why they've got the whole government shut down this entire time. And things like, oh, let's see, you actually had a protest. Yeah, so, okay, sure. Trump's a king. It's the same kind of responses when I say, hey, Trump. You say Trump is unconstitutional. He's doing unconstitutional things. Well, name an article, a section, a paragraph, a specific item. Name one specific item that he has done that is unconstitutional. It's crickets. Crickets. Speaking of unconstitutional, we all know that the deployment of the National Guard in several locations across our great country, being put in place, by the way, to protect ICE agents and federal buildings, as well as other federal agencies, to essentially back up manpower and take on some of the protesters who are sitting there and damaging these buildings and causing all kinds of problems. And not only that, but breaking the law. Title 18, United States Code, Section 111, as an example. But all of that being done, of course, the administration has been placed under a bunch of lawsuits in several locations attempting to stop the constitutionally appropriate and court-backed up deployment of the National Guard in these locations to help quell, and not only that, but under the legal authority, in order to help quell some of these mini resistance, we'll call them rebellions because that's kind of what they are. Well, a court has agreed with Trump once again, because if you recall, California tried to sue him for deploying the National Guard into L.A., and that got overturned. Well, now this federal appeals court in Oregon has overturned a block done by a district judge. Now, again, keep in mind, I keep telling you, these district judges that are attempting to block the president, the Article 2 executive branch of the government, their attempts to block this is unconstitutional by itself, just because of the fact that they are lower courts that do not have the authority to block the president in his constitutional authority. Okay? Now, all of that being said, a federal appeals court has ruled today that President Donald Trump may deploy the National Guard troops to deal with the violence directed against federal immigration facilities in Portland. while the case works its way through the lower courts. A 3-judge panel in the U.S. Court of Appeals of the Ninth Circuit. Now, keep in mind, the Ninth Circuit is the most overturned circuit and the considered to be the most liberal of the circuit courts. Voted in a 2-1 decision to stay an August 4th order from U.S. District Judge Karen Innergut of Oregon, who tried to block, and again, I'm saying this unconstitutionally block, a move by Trump to deploy members of the Oregon National Guard to Portland. Now, the panel heard the oral arguments in the case in San Francisco on August 9th. Now, the order that came out said straight up. Now, this is the second time, okay, that this panel has heard, because again, the Ninth Circuit covers the West Coast. And that being said, this is the second time that this panel has heard this and has knocked this stuff down. But they said in the order that the defendants, meaning the government, are likely to succeed on the merits of their appeal, and other stay factors weigh in their favor. We grant the defendant's motion for a stay pending appeal. Folks, these idiots, these leftist idiots, these leftist morons don't seem to understand. There is precedent, court precedent, historical precedent for exactly what the president is doing, because these cities and states are performing unconstitutional and illegal actions in attempting to block the federal government from doing its duty, from doing its job. This is exactly what the federal government is supposed to do. Immigration enforcement is 100% in the ball. The ball is completely in the court of the federal government. And all that Trump is doing is enforcing federal law. That's it. See, all of these lunatics and leftist morons are running around here thinking that Trump is being an authoritarian. He's not. All he is doing is his sworn duty, which is to enforce laws that are on the books. Got a little bit more on that here in just a minute, but this is basically what happened was that in Innergut's order, she noted that Trump said in a Truth Social post on September 27th that he was sending troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. The judge at the time, Innergut, held that Trump was not legally entitled to federalize the Oregon National Guard and that the situation in Portland was not as dire as the federal government claimed. Now, originally on August 8th, the same Ninth Circuit panel restored Trump's control over the National Guard troops, but said that he has to wait on deploying them for the time being. See, this is the part that is just totally bullcrap. The president is 100% the commander-in-chief. He is 100% in control over all of the forces, National Guard included. He does not necessarily need anyone's approval to bring the National Guard in under the federal level. He doesn't need it. Now, there are rules like the Posse Comitatus Act and the Insurrection Act, which, by the way, President Trump has been mentioning. He does have the ability to use the Insurrection Act. History and court precedents has confirmed that he does have the ability to use the the Insurrection Act. But he is available. He is trying to avoid using it. He's avoiding using it because, contrary to popular belief, Trump does not necessarily believe that force is the first way to go with this. He wants to try to make a deal with these people. He wants to try and tamp things down. And honestly, if you want peace in your cities, you could easily make peace. Like I've been saying, it's very simple. All it is take these mayors and governors who are acting like they are outside of the law and just have them do their job. That's it. If every single one of these cities and states would do their job, the president wouldn't have to get involved. He wouldn't even be a part of this. But no. So, there you go. Anyway, that's not the only one that's happening. So, you'll recall that the court orders limiting the deployment of the National Guard in Chicago. So we just took care of Oregon. So now we're talking about Chicago. And in Chicago, the Solicitor General, who basically is the person who, for the government that goes to the Supreme Court of the United States, is taking an emergency petition directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. So the problem here, of course, is rulings by 2 Illinois judges and a 3-judge panel of the 7th Circuit that stripped the president's constitutional authority over deployment of National Guard troops under federal command. Now, this is the exact same thing that the 9th Circuit just said he has the ability to do. And the exact same thing that the 9th Circuit said the California case he has the ability to do. So because we have essentially conflicting judges and conflicting cases in terms of orders, it's highly likely that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to grant this through their emergency docket. So anyway, how this worked out is, of course, on October 4th, the president determined the situation in Chicago had become unsustainably dangerous for federal agents attempting to carry out law enforcement, specifically immigration enforcement, actions in and around Chicago. The President Trump directed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to call into federal service 300 members of the Illinois National Guard until the governor of Illinois consents to a federally funded mobilization under Title 32 of the United States Code. So that's the difference. So you have Title 10 mobilization for the National Guard, and you have Title 32 mobilization of the National Guard. Title 10 is federal. Title 32 is state. So anyway, the original judge, granted a 14-day TRO, temporary restraining order, blocking the federalization and deployment of the National Guard of the United States within Illinois, including any of the out-of-state troops, because if you recall, Texas was sending some. Despite video evidence to the contrary, she said she found no credible evidence of danger of rebellion or the inability to enforce federal laws. Well, hello, I've seen videos of people blocking, literally breaking Title 18 USC Section 111 on video. Anyway, so yeah. She basically said that, yeah, you can't do that. Well, the administration appealed to the 7th Circuit and won a partial stay on October 11th. It allowed the administration to federalize the guardsmen, but they were not allowed to be deployed for riot control duties or security patrols. So, and by the way, the judges apparently upholding it found that they didn't think a little rioting was really all that bad. That's breaking the law, folks. And we have a 3-judge panel that's pretty much saying that you can riot now. Yeah, I don't think so. And part of the order or the decision that came down said this: although we substantially agree with the definition of rebellion set forth by the district court in Newsom, we emphasize that the critical analysis of a rebellion centers on the nature of the resistance to government authority. Political opposition is not rebellion. A protest does not become a rebellion merely because the protesters advocate for a myriad legal or policy changes, are well organized, call for significant changes to the structure of the U.S. government, use civil disobedience as a form of protest, or exercise their Second Amendment right to carry firearms as the law currently allows. Well, that would be true. Except, again, they're breaking federal law, 18 U.S.C. Section 111. Anyway, it continues here, nor does a protest become a rebellion merely because of sporadic or isolated incidents of unlawful activity or even violence committed by rogue participants in the protest. Excuse me, but how does that not indicate a rebellion? Anyway, they did admit that such conduct exceeds the scope of the First Amendment, of course, and law enforcement has apprehended the perpetrators accordingly. But because rebellions at least use deliberate, organized violence to resist governmental authority, wait, that's what they are doing in Illinois. Anyway, they say the problematic incidents in this record clearly fall within the considerable daylight between protected speech and rebellion. Yeah. Anyway. So, all of this, of course, this particular ruling in case is really totally insane and out there. But the Solicitor General filed an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court and says, at the bottom, the plaintiffs seek to use this suit to second-guess the president's judgment that recent and repeated acts of violence targeting federal facilities and personnel in Illinois warrant calling up the National Guard, including because the violence has left the president sufficiently unable to ensure the faithful execution of federal law. He says under Title 10 U.S.C. 12406 subparagraph 3 is what they are attempting to, what Trump has been pointing to as, hey, this is what I'm using in order to do this. And it basically said that like the 1795 law at issue in Martin, Section 12406 makes it clear that Congress has granted the authority to decide whether the statutory prerequisites are satisfied exclusively to the president. Meaning that Congress has basically said the president and the president alone has the authority to determine what is and is not consistent with this particular situation as a ability or a stoppage of his ensuring faithful execution of federal law, namely the immigration law. So the Solicitor General also writes in the district court's order and the Court of Appeals' partial stay of that order cause irreparable harm to the executive branch by countermanding the president's authority as commander-in-chief, jeopardizing the lives and safety of DHS officers, and preventing the President and Secretary of War from taking reasonable and lawful measures to protect federal personnel from the violent resistance that has persisted in the Chicago area for several months. As this court recently reiterated, the President must take care that the laws be faithfully executed. That's exactly what Trump is doing. He is taking care that immigration law is faithfully executed. Immigration law is faithfully executed. And that he alone bears responsibility for his actions or for the actions of his subordinates in the executive branch. Now, there's a lot more to it than just that. But this is literally the situation here. Now, what's funny, or, well, not necessarily funny, but of course the Democrats are just chapped over the fact that the federal government is actually enforcing its laws. And I'll get to that here in just a minute. But first, let's talk about, let's see. Let's talk about Rumble Premium. So you're watching me on Rumble. You're also watching me on X and YouTube and Facebook, but I guarantee you need to come on over to Rumble. Rumble is much, much better than all of that. But you've probably noticed that Rumble itself is growing fast and it's not slowing down. And I promise you, Rumble is growing exponentially. They are building a real alternative to big tech. The free speech alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's this thing called Rumble Premium, which is an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content that you've come here for. Plus, Premium members also unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite content creators like myself. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. All you have to do is go to rumble.com/premium. That's rumble.com/ by the way, that / is your question mark key, premium, and use the promo code STUDIO at checkout to get that $10 off when you purchase an annual subscription. That's rumble.com / premium, promo code STUDIO to get that $10 off when you order that annual subscription. No ads, more freedom, and content that you actually care about. That's the deal. Go to rumble.com / premium, use promo code STUDIO at checkout to get $10 off an annual subscription to Rumble Premium. All right. So, you may have heard that Virginia has a governor's race going on. In the Democrat governor candidate, her last name is Spanberger, first name Abigail. Well, she was apparently on some sort of a podcast, and it had a, let's see. She used to be a former congresswoman and CIA officer, by the way, which is weird. But she made a comment during a recent interview while discussing immigration policy and the federal government's response to the southern border. Well, this is kind of interesting because this response is honestly kind of typical of Democrats today. So let's take a quick listen.
In what we've seen recently, the really, I think, horrifying thing is that now under the new administration or the Trump administration, where every cross into the United States is considered a criminal act.
Okay. So, yeah. And not to mention the fact, but there's also other Democrats who have all been calling this out and saying, no. It's a civil violation. It's not a criminal act. It's a civil violation. Well, I'm getting a little frustrated with that. I am. And the reason being is because I actually know the law that they are talking about. And here it is. It is Title 8, United States Code 1325, improper entry by an alien. And by alien, I don't mean from outer space. I'm talking about an alien from a foreign country that is not a U.S. citizen. Here, under the number 1, the first item here. Any alien who enters or attempts to enter the United States at any time or place other than as designated by immigration officers or eludes examination or inspection by immigration officers or attempts to enter or obtains entry to the United States with a willfully false or misleading representation or the willful concealment of a material fact shall, meaning this is what's going to happen to you. For the first commission of any such offense, be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 6 months, or both. Now, why did I put emphasis on that? Well, it's actually quite simple. See, civil law usually is something where you are not imprisoned. You may be fined, but you are typically not imprisoned for things. Okay? And so the mere fact that this first paragraph under 8, U.S. Code, that's Title 8, U.S. Code 1325, actually states that there is a imprisonment punishment for this. Okay, and believe me, that's for just the first offense. See, if they'd have said, oh, the first offense is just, it's a fine, that would have been a civil penalty. See, civil penalties usually involve fines. Criminal penalties usually involve jail time. This is not a civil offense. This actually is a criminal offense. It is a criminal offense. And especially if you do it not just once, but twice, because let me finish this. It says, and for a subsequent commission of any such offense, be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both. So, folks, when you hear, I don't know who it was, Jasmine Crockett, I think was one of them, who said, hey, you know what? Coming and crossing the border, that's a civil violation. No, it's not. It is a criminal violation because you have the opportunity as a punishment to be put in jail. That's one of the easier ways to get to basically go over the idea of what is criminal and what is civil. Now, again, if this law literally just said, hey, you know what? All you have to do is pay a fine. That would have been a civil violation. But because you're doing it and you're getting jail time, that is a criminal violation. That means you'll have a criminal violation on your record. Not necessarily a felony, because your first act basically is considered to be a misdemeanor. But it's a criminal act. Now, where they might be getting this idea that it's a civil penalty could be because of the next sign or the next section, which essentially outlines the fine that could be added. For an example, a fine of any alien who is apprehended while entering or attempting to enter the United States at a time and place other than as designated by immigration officers shall be subject to a civil penalty of... See, this is the part where they are trying to make this into a, this is a civil fine. No. If you read the first paragraph like I did, you can be imprisoned, which makes the violation a criminal penalty that has, as a part of it, a civil penalty as well. Because again, you can either be fined, imprisoned, or both. Now, this second section that I'm talking about actually outlines what the civil penalties are. The first one is at least $50 and not more than $250 for each attempted entry or such entry, or twice the amount specified, twice that of $50 or $250, in the case of an alien who has been previously subject to a civil penalty under this subsection. So, by the way, it also states clearly civil penalties under this subsection are in addition to, read this, in addition to and not in lieu of any criminal or other civil penalties that may be imposed. Even that right there says that, hey, this is not in lieu of anything else. It's in addition to anything else. Crossing the border is a criminal act. It is not a civilian penalty. You don't just simply get a fine. That may have been the way that the Biden administration might have enforced it, had they enforced anything, but they're not. They didn't. And so this whole idea where people think, oh, crossing the border, yeah, that's just a civil penalty. It's not a criminal act. Yes, it is. It is totally a criminal act. This tells you right here, it's a criminal act. Oh, these morons. I'm telling you, these idiots. They just sit there and they talk out their mouths without even being aware of what's going on in the world at all. Now, speaking of the Virginia governorship, there is a fantastic Republican candidate in the race. She was the lieutenant governor, and she is now up for the possibility of becoming the governor. And you know what? She's black. Oh my gosh. A black Republican woman. She checks the intersectional boxes for the leftists. You would think that they would be jumping out of their seats to vote for this woman. But no. No. And this demonstrates itself by the liberal racist bile that she has been getting. I showed you several episodes ago of the white liberal woman who held up a sign that says, if transgenders can't get into our bathrooms, then black people can't use my water fountain. Yeah, that's an actual sign. And it was held up at Winsome Sears by a leftist. Yep. Well, now we've got another leftist. So she was apparently at the JMU football game, and this man, this leftist idiot, apparently was sitting in the stands, and he basically yells out to her, "Go back to Haiti," and calls her a traitor. Well, there's a couple problems with this. One is, yes, Winsome Sears is not a American-born individual, but she is naturalized. Okay, she is naturalized, and she didn't come from Haiti. She came from Jamaica. She served honorably as a Marine, and she says in her stump speeches, her father emigrated legally from Jamaica to the United States with only $1.75 in his pocket. She was 6 years old at the time. Her father worked hard to build a life for his family, and she has distinguished herself as a Marine and as the first black lieutenant governor of a former slave state. So that by itself should just, garner a lot of respect. Well, it does from the Republicans, but not from the leftist Democrats. Okay? Anyway, a white liberal man sitting a few rows behind her at the, let's see, what is this? The James Madison University football game decided to yell at her and call her out for it. Now, this dumbass was investigated and dug into, and they got his name. I'm not going to say it, but he is apparently an engineer with a company called Zira Associates, which is a Lockheed Martin subsidiary that contracts with the United States Air Force and the Department of War. He's also a prolific Democrat donor, having given to Michigan's Elissa Slotkin's run Georgia Senator John Ossoff, and, of course, Virginia, the Bright Lights of Virginia, Senator Tim Kaine, you know, the idiot that said that our rights come from government and not from God, and, of course, Abigail Spanberger, which you just heard. Anyway, so, yeah, this jackass decided to yell at her and was completely wrong about what he decided to yell toward her. What a complete moron. Well, to continue the moron train, because that's what we got going on here, there actually is there is a liberal mainstream media folk who dropped a let's say a little bit of a truth bomb, I guess. So, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson appeared on ABC with Jonathan Karl on Sunday. And, well, let's go ahead and just take a listen to what happened there.
I'm joined now by the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, right here in the studio. Speaker Johnson, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be with you. Thanks.
So let's start with the No Kings rallies. You called these Hate America rallies. What do you mean by that?
Well, that collection of folks that I listed were certainly part of it. We congratulate them on a apparently violent free speech exercise. I was a First Amendment lawyer for 20 years. We defend that right. But the irony of the message is pretty clear for everyone. If President Trump was a king, the government would be open right now. If President Trump was a king, they would not have been able to engage in that free speech exercise out on the mall, by the way, which was open because President Trump hasn't closed it. In the last shutdown, 2013 era, President Obama closed the National Mall, it closed all the national parks, didn't allow people to engage in all this. So, I mean, they needed a stunt, they needed a show. Chuck Schumer needs cover right now. He's closed the government down because he needs political cover, and this was a part of it.
So, Mike Johnson dropping truth bombs on his way around. Well, the interesting thing about it is that he nuked he nuked it. But here's another element to the discussion that the Democrats aren't going to like, because John Karl actually stated the truth. Take a listen.
The Democrats did not vote for the clean funding bill. They have chosen to shut the government down, to fight for the health care and the other items you mentioned. But let me ask you, why, as this is going on, why is the House not in session?
Well, first of all, we're fighting for health care as well, not just in word, but in deed. We put it in the one big beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, real reforms to Medicaid to make it work better, to preserve the program, because we had illegal aliens receiving benefits. We had young able-bodied men who were not working. They don't have dependents. They were riding the wagon. We cleaned that up in our bill. In their counterproposal, what Chuck Schumer is arguing for is he wants to reverse those reforms, which would be a terrible policy decision for the people.
But I'm actually asking a different question.
So, did you catch that in the beginning? I'm going to go ahead and play just the beginning again so you can catch this. Listen.
The Democrats did not vote for the clean funding bill. They have chosen to shut the government down, to fight for the health care and the other items you mentioned. But let me...
That's it. Right there. Right there. The Democrats have shut down the government, not the Republicans. I wonder if this ABC guy got a phone call after this, because he actually said the truth, that the Democrats did not vote for the clean funding bill, and they, meaning the Democrats, have chosen to shut the government down. Ouch. When you lose the Democrat or the mainstream media for them, oh boy. Yeah, I'm wondering if he's gotten or had a talking to on that. All right. Real quick shift. You remember, folks, when we were talking about the driver, the CDL licensed semi-driver who killed people in Florida. And the the possibility that, first of all, that he had received his CDL license from both Washington and California. And from all of that, there was some question as to whether or not Florida was going to sue California at a minimum for ignoring the federal commercial driving rules and requiring people to speak and communicate in English effectively. Well, we have that answer. Here in the Epic Times, Florida sues California, Washington State for allegedly ignoring federal communication or federal commercial driving rules. They finally did it. And I'm going to really appreciate this. So Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier said that his state is suing California and Washington State over their policy of allegedly ignoring federal rules regarding the issuance of commercial driver's licenses. The new lawsuit comes weeks after the federal government unveiled stricter criteria for the issuance of CDLs. He made the statement on his official website on October 16th, indicating that the lawsuit had been filed with the United States Supreme Court. You need to understand that whenever something like this comes up, because the U.S. Constitution gives Supreme Court the original jurisdiction over disputes between the states, that goes direct to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court has yet to docket the lawsuit. However, the Florida's proposed bill of complaint says California's and Washington's open defiance of federal immigration law is well documented. Both states routinely frustrate and hinder federal law enforcement from addressing the immigration crisis and the destruction that accompanies it. So, yeah. Federal law provides that states issuing CDLs adhere to safety and immigration status standards, but California and Washington often ignore these and authorize illegal aliens without proper training or the ability to read road signs, the ability to drive commercial motor vehicles, the document said. According to the complaint, it continues, the two states are endangering citizens in their own states and other states that obey federal law and adhere to CDL safety standards. So, yeah, there you go. It's due. It is due, folks. It is also about time for this to happen, and I hope that Florida is victorious in this. Just going to tell you right now, I hope that Florida is victorious. All right, so really quickly over on the international desk, the Israel-Hamas ceasefire had a violation, accordingly, or alleged by Hamas. Hamas apparently had they fired a couple of rocket-propelled grenades at a couple of tanks in Gaza. Israel immediately responded and hit some terror tunnels that it knew already were in the area. And that seems to be it. So according to Trump, the ceasefire is still in effect, that it hasn't been broken as of yet. But one thing that you do need to understand is Hamas has made it clear that they are not desiring to disarm completely. And so there's still some details to try and figure out who exactly is going to be the force that disarms Hamas. Because that was part of the deep peace deal, was that Hamas had to disarm. But I have a feeling that that is definitely not going to happen. So sitting here, I'm just saying, sitting here is going to be one of the things that, this is going to be one of the sticking points, I think, for this peace deal. So we'll have to watch and focus and see what happens in the near future with this. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search for the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, who is watching something else tonight, a thumb sideways across all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.